get I suppose your predictions with the Arnolds, which is how many weeks now is it? Are we 4 weeks out?
Four, yeah.
Mad. I can't believe how fast it's come around. But I'll just pull up the little diagram that I did.
Yeah, the Arnold, we decided not to do that. There was only 9 weeks between, and I think the difficulty is in 9 weeks you can not make much improvements. I mean, she could have come in a little bit leaner, you know, so we would have fought for that. But ultimately, she still needs a little more glute development. So do we spend 10 weeks dieting down or 10 weeks growing? As much as I love the Arnold, our goal is to win the Olympia, right? And Maureen just won the Olympia, never won the Arnold, right? So it used to be like this unspoken rule that you won the Arnold first and then you won the Olympia, because they were so far apart. The Olympia champion usually wouldn't do the show in September, win the Olympia, and do the Arnold. They would usually stop competing. This year was unique, but you know, Daraja had her honeymoon planned around that time, and we need to make improvements, so it worked out. And then when this list came out, I was like, it would have been nice to do it, but I mean, you basically have 5 of the top 7 Olympians, so it's not a chance to leapfrog a bunch of people that aren't there or to, you know, get noticed. So in my mind, I was like, we made the right decision, you know, because now we've got a head start on the off season.
Absolutely. So I don't know, can you see all the athletes here?
Yeah, that looks great. That's very cool.
So I've just put down what I think my top 5 are, but this is just 5 of the athletes here. Paul, where do you think your top 5 is at?
You know, I don't think that there's enough time to knock off the champ. I think Maureen is very fresh. She did not compete all year since March. She did the Boston show, shut it down, came out for the Olympia. So whatever feedback she would have gotten, if they told her to do anything, it's going to be very easy for her to tighten, to fuller, to whatever the feedback. And I don't know what the feedback was. Those are just, you know, throwing out terms. But I think it's going to be very hard for anything to happen, because Jennifer came in her best look that I've ever seen her in person. First time I've ever seen her walk out on stage and thought, wow. She's always very balanced, but that was the first time that I thought, man, she really, like, that time off did her good. Like, her new approach to prep has worked wonders. The fact that they didn't give her the title, or that Maureen beat her out, it was obviously a very close decision between those two. And I think it's towards the end of prejudging is when it happened, because at the beginning Maureen wasn't even in the middle, right? They swapped her in with Ashley. So I think we all thought, everyone in the whole world thought, it's Jen's show, they're trying to figure out second. So but if you're saying that Maureen was the standard 9-10 weeks ago, unless she shows up off, and I don't think we've ever seen Maureen show up off. I've seen her in Tampa. I've seen her, she did the same, she beat Daraja at Janet's Battle of the Bodies. I was there. You know, I've seen her compete at the Arnold, at the Olympia multiple times. You've never seen her off. She's very consistent. So if that's the case, you have to go with, okay, she's the champ, she's the standard. Agreed. Where you get into some interesting things is like, okay, Laura Lee was the standard. She won Pittsburgh. She won the Arnold. She won the New York. Everyone thought she was coming for that title. If she corrects that, is she then beating Maureen? Because she beat her at the Arnold. So I think really the biggest discussion is, what does Laura Lee do differently? Because she's the biggest wild card. I thought Ashley was on, Phoebe was on, everyone was on, and Laura Lee looked really good. Now I just got a new prescription. It's really funny. So when I was at the Olympia, my vision was not 100%, and I was, you know, a few rows back. I couldn't see what they were looking at. And when I talked to Laura Lee after, she said, yeah, they said I was a little too hard and not full enough. So, you know, she makes that minor adjustment. She's obviously going to be in the mix. So can she overtake Maureen if Maureen brings the same package or even slightly better? That, to me, that's the battle. It's between Laura Lee's past self and Maureen being consistent. I just don't know, unless Jen makes an adjustment that they wanted her to make. Maybe they ask her to be fuller. Maybe they ask her to, you know, her front pose, she looks a little tilted to me, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I don't know if that's been her feedback, but it just looks like she's leaning, and that throws off her shoulder balance. And if you look in this picture, how wide Maureen's shoulders look versus Jen's, and again, these aren't like side by sides on stage, so it's hard to compare. But you know, but when you're talking about hairline decisions.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
So to me, it's Maureen's show. And then the question mark is Lauralee. Can she do what they want her to do? Because she could win the show. Like literally I think the first 4 you have there could win the show.
Yeah.
Probably the first 3. I don't think Ashley has beaten any of them recently, in my mind. I don't think she's beaten Lauralee, Jen, or Maureen in the last couple of years. I could be wrong. But you start to look at those patterns of who can beat who.
And it really is like how they are on the day. Because I agree. I think if Lauralee can bring her 100%, I do think she has, and I would love to see her take it again. But it really just depends, I think that's what's so exciting about Bikini, really, is it? Like like those adjustments can just be made in a couple of weeks, and you just never know, and there's been a different.
Well, the show is on the East Coast, so the Olympia, for those that don't go, Vegas is a desert, and it's also like 4,000 or 5,000 foot elevation, so it's very dry there, and the venues are all very far apart. So like you're walking to makeup, it can be 20 minutes, and sometimes you don't account for that. And so she might have just flattened out, being more active and being at a higher elevation. Now we're going to go to the East Coast, to Ohio, where Lauralee lives on the East Coast. She lives in Florida, same time zone. It might just be more comfortable for her. I think Maureen lives in LA, right? So maybe Vegas kind of favored her a little bit. Like these little tiny things matter, and they're all going to show up looking amazing. But yeah, the eye test on I cannot wait for prejudging. Like, are you guys gonna be there at the Arnold?
We'll be watching.
Yeah,
our goal for next year.
That environment, when you only have 10 competitors, it's really fun. Right? When there's 54 at the Olympia, it's like by the time they get through with groups and the routines start, you've got an hour until call outs. With this show, it's 2 groups, 10 routines, and call outs. You've got 10 minutes after the show starts, they're doing call outs, right? And you're seeing them move people around. So it happens quick, and the crowd really gets into it.
I can't wait. Especially for Lauralee, I think as well. Like I've followed so many of these athletes for such a long time, but Lauralee, I really feel like is just a hairline away. Like she got so close, and obviously she won the Arnolds last year. So to see her come in that little bit harder, it wasn't necessarily something that I expected at the Olympia at all. But I think to sort of reinstate her, she has such a massive persona and such a massive sort of character in Bikini anyway. She is such an icon of the sport. So I'm, as much as I would love to see Maureen take it, and I'm a huge fan of her physique and her package, but I think there's something rooting for Lauralee for me.
Yeah, and I mean,
must say.
So let's look at the next 5, because I feel like there's some sneaky people on this list that so Ivana Eskandar is very interesting because she was, and apologies to her, I don't know her. I mean, we've met and chatted, but I think she was very flat. She didn't have the bubble that she normally does. I saw her compete a few times last year, and she would be very different. One show she'd be very tight and hard. The next show she'd be very full. And when she brought that full look, so if Ivana brings that big full look, I think she could sneak into that top 4. Right, like she's out of all these girls. Ellie is just very tiny. She's always on though. Romina's another one. I think she surprised people being in the top 10 at the Olympia, because she only just qualified a few weeks before, but she fits the standard so well. Like she's like, if you take Maureen and her side by side, I think they're structurally very similar, right? So if she brings a look that they love, she's won the New York Pro. She's placed, but I don't know that anybody on this list can crack that top 3, because I wouldn't expect Maureen, Jen, and Lauralee and Ashley to be off like that. That's just not happening. They're very consistent. Yeah. So, but I agree with your assessment. I think the fight will be for that 5th spot between Phoebe, Ivana, and Romina.
Yeah. What just as we on the topic of Phoebe, and she's like our UK athlete, that we all look up to. But how do you have any kind of, I suppose, feedback on her physique? She won the Arnold Classic in the UK in 2021, if I remember correctly. She did compete at the last Arnold, but I don't think she placed as high as
she wasn't ready.
Liked.
So I don't know. Phoebe and I struck up a friendship a couple years ago. I don't recall how, but she's just one of those people. Like she's lovely to be around. She's great to talk to. She's very, you know, just great personality. She's, you know, sometimes, you know, you travel around to all these shows and you just start to click with people. I've always clicked with Phoebe, really always admired her physique. And, you know, when I saw her at the Arnold last year, she was like, yeah, we really fought to get down to even close, but that wasn't her best look, right? She knew it. I think maybe it was surprised that she got on that list. And so she wasn't like prepping for it. But I think what it did was it set her up to come out of that show with a very clear purpose to be successful, right? To come into Texas. You know, seeing her stand side by side with Daraja in Texas, it was between them pretty clearly. Phoebe's a taller athlete, and I think Daraja is just a little more bubbly at this point. So I think, you know, Phoebe just continues to evolve. She's going to be a staple in that first call out at the Olympia. Like she just, I feel like she's, you know, her and Adam have figured out her body, how to get her conditioning and fullness right on stage. So yeah, she's just, you know, and she's another one of those girls, when it comes down to the top girls in the world, structure stands out. Let me look at her structure. I mean, in this front pose, you know, from the waist up, she might have the best structure, right? She doesn't have the fullness to the glute yet and the legs, but I mean, put a little bit of Laura Lee on her and you can see her winning some big shows, right? And that's just what this sport is. And she has the right attitude. She's in it for the long haul. She's not a make it or break it from show to show. She's a lifetime competitor. You can tell she loves the process. So yeah, big fan of Phoebe's. And, you know, I'm sure the thing about competitors is it's all about the motivation. What's your motivation? As soon as the Olympia ended, her motivation was that the Arnold ready, right? She knew. So like, I think they're going to be on. Like athletes get better when they stay in prep longer, especially of this caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting with Phoebe because obviously Maureen is a shorter athlete, you know, and when we did the last kind of Olympia review, we noticed that like the top three were kind of shorter as well. So I think, you know, sometimes the height can go in your favor and sometimes not. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how she stands up against the rest of them.
Yeah, you get nervous as a coach when like the winners of the Olympia are like, you know, the first call out is like Janet and Laura Lee, because you can't make yourself taller. So I think, like I said, this year, everybody got excited because Maureen was the shortest. Like Daraja towers over Maureen, like several inches. I don't know if she's 5 feet tall even, maybe right around 5 foot. Right. So like, but it's the structure for Maureen. Like her structure is crazy and she's stunning. She's beautiful. So like, you know, you that's one thing I love about the bikini division. Like you don't typically see in bodybuilding a 6 foot guy and a 5 foot guy battling it out, right? Whereas like in bikini, that's the case because the physiques are so specific to the individual that fit the criteria. So it's going to be really fun to see how that evolves. Now, if Maureen is the standard, does that mean Romina, Evie, and Eli Fernandez are now going to be moving up at this? You know, there's a lot. The sport changes quickly, so we'll see.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, I have to say. Amazing, Paul. Thank you for all that. It's so good to hear your insight into everything.